Okay, so you want to buy your own private island, cut off the rest of the world, build a house nobody can reach without a boat or a helicopter, and finally own a piece of paradise nobody else gets to touch. Sounds like the ultimate flex. It is not simple. And the story of how private islands actually make money, and how they actually fall apart, is one of the strangest corners of real estate on the planet. Before you make a single dollar, or spend a single peaceful morning on your own beach, you need to survive buying the thing. And the price tag is a lot more elastic than people assume. A small, undeveloped island off the coast of Nova Scotia or Maine can sell for under $100,000. A private island in the Bahamas with a dock and a modest house might run $2 to $5 million. A fully developed luxury island in the Caribbean or the South Pacific, the kind with a private airstrip, a marina, and staff quarters, can sell for $50 million or more. The land itself is rarely the expensive part. What's expensive is everything the land doesn't come with. Here's the first thing nobody tells you when they picture owning an island. You're not just buying land, you're buying the absence of everything a normal property takes for granted. No power grid, no water line, no sewer system, no roads. No internet backbone, no fire department a few minutes away. Every single one of those has to be built, imported, or generated on site, and every one of those systems has to survive salt air, storms, and total isolation without a repair crew down the street. That brings up something almost nobody thinks about until they own the place. In most countries outside your own, you don't actually own the island the way you'd own a house. A huge number of private islands, especially across the Caribbean, Fiji, and Southeast Asia, are sold on leasehold, not freehold. You're leasing the land from the national government for 50, 60, sometimes 99 years, not owning it outright. Foreign ownership laws can also change with a change in government, and more than one buyer has discovered, years into ownership, that new legislation restricts what foreigners can build, sell, or even visit on land they thought was theirs forever. You're not just buying a piece of geography. You're buying a bet on a government staying stable for the next century. Say you've cleared that hurdle and the island is legally yours. Before you enjoy a single sunset, there's a layer of costs that catches almost every new island owner off guard. First, there's power and water. A single small generator and a basic desalination unit, the machine that turns seawater into drinking water, can cost anywhere from $50,000 to several $100,000 installed, and that's before you pay for the diesel to keep it running around the clock. Second, there's transportation infrastructure. If there's no natural harbor, you're dredging one, or building a dock capable of surviving hurricane swells, which alone can run into the millions on a larger property. Third, there's staffing. Somebody has to live there or come out regularly to run the generators, maintain the boats, manage the grounds, and respond when something breaks at 2 in the morning during a storm. None of this shows up in the sale listing. You see it the first time a storm knocks out your only water pump, and the nearest hardware store is a 2-hour boat ride away. Here's where it gets interesting, because if you actually want the island to make money instead of just costing you money, the way private islands generate income is more layered than people assume. The first and most obvious layer is rental income. Ultra-luxury island rentals can go for anywhere between $10,000 and $80,000 a night, depending on size, amenities, and brand. Richard Branson's Necker Island in the British Virgin Islands, for example, built an entire business model around exactly this, renting the whole island out to groups for tens of thousands of dollars a night, turning what started as a personal retreat into a standalone hospitality brand. The second layer is event hosting. Weddings, corporate retreats, and private celebrations pay a premium specifically for exclusivity, and an island can charge site fees on top of nightly rental rates simply because there's no other guest anywhere on the property to disturb. The third layer, and one almost nobody pictures, is location licensing. Film crews, photographers, and advertisers will pay substantial day rates to shoot on a truly private, untouched island, because that kind of isolation is nearly impossible to fake anywhere else. The fourth layer is conservation and tax incentive programs. In some jurisdictions, owners who place their island under a conservation easement or partner with environmental organizations for research and rewilding can access meaningful tax benefits or even direct funding, turning untouched land into an asset in its own right. There's a counterintuitive detail hiding inside all of this worth pointing out. You would think a bigger island costs more to maintain, and in raw dollars it does, but per acre, small islands are often dramatically more expensive to run than large ones. That's because the fixed costs, the generator, the desalination plant, the boat, the staff housing, don't shrink just because the island is small. A 5-acre island and a 50-acre island can need almost the exact same core infrastructure, which means the 5-acre owner is paying for a full power plant and water system to serve a fraction of the land. Size and cost, in other words, don't scale the way people expect. Isolation is the expensive part, not acreage. Now here's the other side of the ledger, the part almost nobody budgets for correctly: insurance. Coastal and island properties sit directly in the path of the exact weather events that are becoming more frequent and more severe. Hurricane insurance on a developed private island can run into the hundreds of thousands of dollars a year if you can get full coverage at all. A growing number of insurers have simply stopped writing new policies on high-risk coastal islands entirely, which means owners are increasingly self-insuring, setting aside enormous reserves against the very real chance that one storm wipes out the dock, the roof, and the power system in a single night. And unlike a mall with co-tenancy clauses spreading risk across dozens of tenants, an island owner has no one to share that loss with. When the storm hits, it hits one owner, one property, all at once. To understand how badly this can go, it helps to look at one real island, start to finish. Norman's Cay in the Bahamas was once one of the most notorious private islands in the world. In the late 1970s, a Colombian trafficker named Carlos Lader bought the island and much of it around it, built an airstrip, ran boats and planes in and out around the clock, and turned it into a staging ground for the Medellin cartel's cocaine smuggling operation into the United States. For a few years, it was a strange kind of paradise. Private planes landing at all hours, armed guards, a mansion, a lifestyle funded entirely by an illegal empire hiding behind the appearance of a private island retreat. Then in 1982, the DEA raided the island. Lader fled, was eventually captured and imprisoned, and the island was left behind essentially abandoned. For decades afterward, Norman's Cay sat in limbo, buildings crumbling, boats sunk in the shallow water off the coast, that eventually became something almost nobody would have predicted: a scuba diving attraction. Tourists coming specifically to see the wreckage of a drug smuggler's fleet rusting on the ocean floor. It took years and multiple owners before parts of the island were redeveloped into a legitimate eco-resort, a fraction of what it might have become had it simply been developed properly from the start. The island didn't fail because the location was bad. It failed because everything built on top of it was built on a foundation that was never stable in the first place, and once that foundation collapsed, the physical property collapsed with it. That's the structural truth underneath the entire industry. An island doesn't fail because paradise stops being beautiful. It fails because the systems keeping it livable, the power, the water, the transportation, the legal ownership itself, were never as permanent as the sand and the palm trees made them look. So does owning a private island actually work as an investment? The honest answer depends entirely on which island, and the gap between the good outcome and the bad outcome is enormous. In the optimistic scenario, you own an island with a secure freehold or a long, stable lease, reliable infrastructure already built and maintained, a hurricane-resistant design, and a rental or event business that keeps it generating income even when you're not there. That's the Necker Island outcome, a personal retreat that turned into a globally recognized hospitality brand generating revenue every single week of the year. In the realistic bad scenario, you own an isolated island with aging infrastructure, no natural harbor, a leasehold that could change with the next election, and a hurricane season that arrives every single year whether your insurance renews or not. The dock breaks, the generator fails, the lease gets challenged, and unlike a mall that can lose one tenant and survive on the others, an island has no one else to lean on. When something breaks, it's the whole property, all at once, with nobody nearby to help. Neither scenario is exotic or theoretical. Both happen constantly across the same industry, sometimes on islands that once looked identical from the water. A private island looks, from a distance, like the simplest kind of property there is: land, surrounded by ocean, belonging entirely to you. From up close, it's actually one of the most fragile financial structures in all of real estate. A property that depends entirely on infrastructure it doesn't naturally have, ownership rights it doesn't fully control, and weather it cannot influence at all. You don't really own an island. You own the bill to keep it habitable, and the moment you stop paying that bill, the ocean quietly takes the rest back.